touchdown, Alabama, let's get it.
The process, no one can stop this. Hottest show in the streets, I bet you can't top this. Rammer, jammer, yellow hammer, come see how we rock this. Alabama fans the best, there's no way you can top this. Recruiting news and interviews, just sit back and watch this.
Recruiting news and interviews, just sit back and watch this.
The process.
Hey everyone, welcome into The Process, Crimson Tide Recruiting. I am your host, Justin Smith, the scouting and recruiting analyst for Touchdown Alabama Magazine. Thank you guys so much for joining me today on Friday morning, which is a bit different from our normal scheduled time, which is every Tuesday and Thursday evening on Touchdown Alabama's YouTube page. Of course, we will return to our normal schedule on next Tuesday, but on today's episode to close out this week of shows, I want to talk about some 2022 prospects who I feel the Crimson Tide are currently leading for at this point in the 2022 recruiting cycle. But before I dive deeper into that, we always kick things off by talking about some recruiting updates. Today is no different, so we're going to dive right into those updates. So with that being said, let's get the process started. Let's dive right into a couple of quick recruiting updates, starting with the Crimson Tide offering a couple of 2023 prospects recently. David Hicks was one of those prospects. Hicks is a 2023 defensive end out of Katy, Texas, who currently stands at 6'4" and weighs 245 pounds. I got an opportunity to catch up with Hicks on today. An interview with him will be posted on touchdowналabama.com soon, so be sure to check out that. An interview you guys can read right now is with Ethan Nation, a 2023 defensive back out of Roswell High School in Roswell, Georgia. You guys can check out that interview over at touchdowналabama.com. As Nation broke down what an Alabama offer means to him, he said it was a dream come true despite him already having 30 offers before the Crimson Tide even extended an offer. So be sure to check out that when you get an opportunity. Crimson Tide are also continuing to extend new offers in the 2022 recruiting class. They offered 4-star running back Jamarion Miller recently out of Texas. The Crimson Tide also offered a 6'7", 220-pound tight end out of Florida and CJ Hawkins on today. So it looks as if the Crimson Tide will possibly add 2 tight ends in this 2022 recruiting class. And I think the door is still open for them to land 2 running backs in the 2022 recruiting class as well, which is something I talked about on the last episode of The Process. We're going to close things out today when it comes to these recruiting updates with the Crimson Tide being included in a top 12 released by 4-star defensive back Alfonso Allen out of Florida. Crimson Tide were included in his top 12 along with several other high-profile programs. I'm going to talk about some prospects in the 2022 recruiting class who I feel the Crimson Tide are in a really good position for with on today's episode of The Process. And if you have been watching the last couple of episodes, these names are not new to you because I have talked about these guys in great detail in the past. And the first prospect I want to talk about today is Emmanuel Henderson, the 5-star running back out of Geneva County High School in Hartford, Alabama, who is set to announce his commitment on March 13th. He has a top school list, which includes programs like Alabama, Georgia, and Clemson. In my opinion, I think his decision will come down to the Bulldogs and the Crimson Tide, another one of those Kirby Smart and Nick Saban recruiting battles. I do feel that the Crimson Tide remain in a great position. I feel that they have the slight lead over the Bulldogs. I understand that the Bulldogs have recruited Henderson well. You look at Kirby Smart and his coaching staff, they have recruited the running back position really well over the last couple of recruiting cycles. But if I had to make a final decision today, I would predict that Henderson would choose the Crimson Tide on March 13th. So we are all waiting to see what he will do in a little under 2 weeks. Another prospect who I feel the Crimson Tide remain in a good position with is 4-star wide receiver Baron Brown. I actually first talked about him 2 weeks ago when I saw him in action at the Southern Express Border War Tournament at Thompson High School in Alabaster, Alabama. And the way he talked about the contact he was having with Alabama, you could tell that the Crimson Tide were making a significant push for him. He said he was in contact with multiple members of the Tide's coaching staff, including their offensive line coach, Doug Marrone, including Nick Saban, talking about how much of a great opportunity it was to talk with Nick Saban. Said it was a dream for any kid to have that opportunity. Saban has even compared him to Heisman Trophy winning wide receiver DeVonta Smith, and they stack up well against one another because when you look at Baron Brown's film, you see some DeVonta Smith. When you look at Brown's frame, we also look at the toughness he brings to the table despite being a smaller wide receiver. So Baron Brown is another prospect who I feel the Crimson Tide are in a great position with. I talked about Amari Kelly 2 weeks ago too when I discussed Baron Brown. So both of those prospects in the 2022 recruiting class who are wide receivers, I feel the Crimson Tide remain in a great position with both of those guys as well. When you look at Kelly and Brown, of course, Amari Kelly is a 4-star wide receiver out of Hood Trussville High School in Trussville, Alabama. He does want to get out and take some more visits like several other prospects in the 2022 recruiting class. His class is itching to get back on campus and itching to get an opportunity to talk face-to-face with some of the coaches that they have had conversations with over Zoom calls and over video calls and just taking virtual tours with them. They're itching to get back on campuses and itching to take visits. So I would put Kelly in that conversation as well. Amari Kelly, Baron Brown, Emmanuel Henderson. I will also put TJ Dudley in that conversation as well when it comes to the Crimson Tide leading for players in the 2022 recruiting class. We had Dudley on the process after the Crimson Tide defeated the Ohio State Buckeyes in the national championship game, and he spoke highly of the way the Crimson Tide's defense played throughout the season, talking about how they continued to get better. Of course, he had a pretty good junior season, was able to help Montgomery Catholic secure a spot in the state championship. Unfortunately, they lost, but he did have a significantly good junior season. So I'll put Dudley in that conversation as well, with a lot of good schools pushing for him in the 2022 recruiting class. But those are 4 prospects who I feel the Crimson Tide are in a great position with at the moment. That will put a bow on this episode of The Process. Be sure to hit that subscribe button below. Also, be sure to leave a like whether you are subscribed or not. Then head over to touchdownalabama.com. Pick up your subscription today. With that subscription, you will be able to read all of our subscriber-only articles. Get your hands on our yearly print magazine issue. Also get an opportunity to read our in-depth scouting reports on each Tide commit in each recruiting class. Then head to the Apple App Store if you do have an Apple device, or to the Google Play Store if you have an Android device, and download the Touchdown Alabama app. With that app, breaking news notifications can be sent to your mobile device by the staff here at touchdownalabama.com. As always, I am Justin Smith, the scouting and recruiting analyst for Touchdown Alabama magazine.